Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be trying a new wizard build in Battleground. Let's do this. Now if you're new to my channel, you won't be aware that I absolutely loathe Battleground now. I actually used to really enjoy playing Battleground up until Tempest launch and the changes to Paragon, simply because my wizard went really weak for some reason after the Paragon changes, and I did actually make a test video showing that before patch and after patch, that my wizard, basically the damage was a lot less, and I hadn't actually changed anything other than the fact that Paragon new system was put in place and I couldn't change what I wanted to necessarily. As always, if you see yourself in this battle, drop me a comment and say hi. So the build that I used to use for Battleground, I used to refer to as my melee whiz build, because it was a case of just charging into opponents, and whether they were barbarian or someone really strong, you were still able to take them down with the build that I was originally using. However, with the change to Paragon and the introduction of Tempest, this build proved to just not work at all anymore. I tested it out a few times and I was just dying really easily. So after those changes, I was kind of pigeonholed into being a support role in Battleground and PvP, which isn't really my playstyle. I generally prefer a much more aggressive playstyle and to actually be up in the action rather than standing at the back and just hoping for the best, which is kind of what I feel Wizard had been pushed into doing. But this build is utilising some of the newer essences, and it's a little bit different to what I've used in quite some time. So we're using Scorch with the electric orb, so that I have a little bit of CC in the build, using teleport for movement obviously, and then as you can see here we're using the new lightning nova and the new disintegrate essence as well. So the idea is with this build that you kind of teleport towards your opponents, you give them the damage that you want to with those skills, the disintegrate and the lightning nova, and then you teleport away. Now obviously having the scorched electric orb does mean that you can throw that first before jumping onto your opponents, and it can be quite successful, but obviously this build is super risky. It's not for the faint-hearted at all, but I'm finding I'm just enjoying it a lot more. It is a lot more fun to play than just doing support, like I said, that you've kind of been pushed into doing as wizard in Battleground. So let's talk about builds. Starting off with set items, we're using 4 pieces of Grace of the Flagellant. All continual damage, channel damage and persistent ground damage is increased by 15%. And each time you damage an individual enemy 5 times, you'll do 18,925 additional damage to that enemy. Alongside this, we're using 4 pieces of Angmets. The duration of your additional Ignite status is increased by 30%. And there is a 15% chance of attaching an Ignite status to an enemy when dealing damage with primary attacks or skills, dealing 22,710 damage over 3 seconds up to a maximum of 3. So we have our first death. We've done pretty good so far to actually survive all of the CC that's been happening here. So I'm going to wait for the revive and then we'll crack on with talking through the build. Looking now at legendary items and starting with Vaish's Resourceful Countenance. Scorch now launches an electric orb that explodes on impact, creating an electric field that pursues enemies and inflicts them with shock. Scorch damage is increased 18% and Scorch cooldown decreased 10% by the Awakened slot there. We've also got 4 pieces of Wired active on the cursed properties. On the chest we're using Isolated Storm. Lightning Nova now calls a lightning orb to orbit you, dealing lightning damage to enemies it hits. Lightning Nova damage is increased 18% and Lightning Nova damage increased 10% from the Awakened slot. On the shoulder we're using the new Filtered Defense. Disintegrate now surrounds you with an entropy field that follows you, damaging and making nearby enemies vulnerable to critical hits. Disintegrate damage is increased 18% and Disintegrate damage increased 10% from the Awakened slot. On the pants we're using Hastened Oblivion. Disintegrate's cooldown is reduced 1.6 seconds when damaging an enemy up to a maximum of 4.8 seconds. Disintegrate damage is increased 10%. On the first main hand we're using Sour Cut. Disintegrate range is increased by 29% and Disintegrate energy is consumed 10% slower. We're also using 4 pieces of Lashed Curse properties on this gear as well. On the alternate main hand we're using Thunderbird's Bite. Lightning Nova damage is increased 19% and Lightning Nova cooldown is decreased by 10%. For the first offhand, we're using Trifling Piffle. When Lightning Nova hits a shocked enemy, it unleashes another Lightning Nova. Cannot occur more often than once every 4.5 seconds, and Lightning Nova cooldown is decreased by 10%. Now there are a few different options for the alternate offhand, but for this build I've gone for Azkalor's Fire. Scorch damage is increased by 19%, and Scorch cooldown is decreased by 10%. So the whole idea of this build is that it's based around shock, and the new Lightning Nova essence is really strong. Teamed with the other essences that I've applied for Lightning Nova, it works really nicely. So the new chest and the new offhand for Lightning Nova are really strong. And then obviously we've got Thunderbird's Bite stacked with that as well for that increased damage too. So this does seem to work quite nicely in Battleground, although I've died a few times. We're currently top for kills and we have a decent amount of assists as well. And obviously, as you can see, we have managed to push the idol quite far as well. Looking at legendary gems, I'm using Blood-Soaked Jade, Starfire Shard, Roiling Consequence, Viper's Bite, Seeping Bowl, Wolfjort, Bottled Hope and Pain Clasp. Now, I normally would have Mother's Lament equipped, and although it is good in PvP, I've gone for Viper's Bite instead, so that we've got 2 damage over time effects from my legendary gems. So we've got Seeping Bowl and Viper's Bite, which can be a powerful combination. And we've also got the damage over time effect from having the Angmits active as well, so having that ignite status from that, obviously paired with Roiling Consequence. Now, last couple of things to touch on is that from my warband, I'm using the attacker stance, so this increases my critical hit chance. I have already got 20% critical hit chance just from the magic on my gear as well, so I have a slightly different gear that I use for PvP just so that I have that higher critical hit chance. And then alongside that, we're using the Gladiator Paragon. So I'm using the cheat death with that, and I also have my saviour pet for keeping me safe as well. You can see there it just kicked in at perfect timing as I was talking about it, because we managed to survive all the players that were there and that were pushing the idol back. So we've managed to push this idol forward enough now, and the barrier is about to be broken. I'm actually really happy with the result of this match. We seem to have done really well. And this build, this was actually the first time I tested this out in Battleground, and I did do a couple of matches afterwards, so I will share the results at the end as well. So it is a victory for our team. I really don't get why people always try and kill you at the end like that. It's super annoying. But yeah, victory for our team, and this is the overall result. So I was MVP for our team. 10 kills, 4 deaths and 15 assists. I would have liked to have had like 3 deaths maximum, but obviously some of those I couldn't avoid with the amount of CC. Now it was Wizard that was top on the other team, and obviously they were using a CC build, which is what was blocking a lot of us in at the beginning. And finally I'm Bronze 5. This is how little I play Battleground, but we have a nice win rate there of 69%. Now, I'm an idiot and I actually deleted some of my screenshots of other results, but this was another one from the same build. So again, MVP, top for kills, 12 kills, 4 deaths and 15 assists. So the build does work well. It is risky. You have to be on top of making sure you have enough teleport to move in and out. And I did actually film this before the changes to teleport. So this should actually be more effective now with the cooldowns having been reduced on that in Battleground. So I'll definitely test it again. Let me know if you want to see that, and I'll share some more results. But for now, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.